Merry Christmas everyone! And what better way to celebrate the birth of Jesus than a very Christmassy game set in the afterlife, where you can bring in the spirit of the season by playing in the snow, warming yourself around the Yule log, and really getting into the role of the Santa Claus. Okay, so sue me, it's the Halloween video that ran behind schedule and I had to repurpose. In my defence, the industry I work in imploded a bit over here, and we're also on our way to our own Year of the Four Emperors. Not sure which book of Fall of the Roman Empire this puts us on, but it can't be good. Regardless, I'm dyslexic enough that Santa and Satan have little appreciable difference, so let's have a happy holidays down in the Seven Circles. Game of the day is Succubus. Actually first, do you remember a game called Agony? No worries if you don't. It was a stealth game set in hell, likely the second circle, lust, judging by the sheer amount of uncovered tits everywhere, and the ground being made up of undulating flesh. Agony was a horror stealth game, and it had some hype before releasing to somewhat mixed to negative reviews. Some people objected to its liberal application of the female form and gore, but people who didn't like that were never going to buy it in the first place. The more relevant criticisms were mostly in regards to the gameplay, which was kinda slow, kinda boring, and kinda just didn't work properly sometimes. It also struggled, somewhat unsurprisingly, with censorship issues. Getting an AO rating in the US is somewhat of a death sentence, so a lot had to be cut back. They later released an uncensored version that was given out for free to people who owned the original, but with the time frame that was taken, it was still quite the ordeal for them and was only really feasible to get on PC. In 2021, Madmind would release Succubus, an indirect sequel, loosely based off the Succubus mode of Agony. It was again set in the second circle, but bordering on the third, judging by all the snow and ice near the end. But more importantly, instead of being a stealth game, it was now Doom 2016, with more tits and weird fleshy melee weapons instead of guns. Well, unless you count the finger guns. This was before boomer shooters became quite the rage and sole product produced by New Blood that they are now. It's a bit of a timepiece made in the transitional time before Doom Eternal, so you can still run around at the land speed record and glory kill every demon in sight, but no grappling hook. In fact, no jump at all. While we're talking Doom, many years ago, John Carmack, one of the creators of the original Doom, said the infamous quote of, "Story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not important." And while I'd argue he's wrong on both counts, here he's quite spot on. The game has more of a premise than a story per se, but to bring you up to speed, Hell is, or at least was, ruled by one called the Red Queen. Back in Agony, the player helped her unleash the seven-headed beast of Revelations, and then she and it pissed off on a demonic class bender across Earth. Now, question. What happens to a place whose inhabitants function almost entirely off base impulse and resolve everything through violence when the established ruler and mediating force of the area fucks off? Okay, time's up. You get anarchy, and a power struggle of biblical proportions. Everyone and their deformed incestuous offspring is picking up whatever they can find, steal, or fashion out of rib cages, and setting about fighting for control of whatever they can, and working out centuries-old grudges that they've not quite got around yet to resolving with extreme violence. You are Vidya, presumably surname game, and are, as the name might have given away, a succubus, product of the unions of both demon and human, consent being, optional. The human in her gives her an advantage, as anyone who's come into long-term contact with them can tell you. They have a penchant for belligerence and a dedication to war. Vidya is also the concubine of King Nimrod and the favoured of the Red Queen. Not that either of them are in the game much, Nimrod only shows up in the last mission, and the aforementioned Red Queen is absent entirely, busy sowing ruin across Europe in a manner not seen since the last England away game. Vidya, meanwhile, is doing fuck all really, and then has a minor disagreement with Agretha, the Queen of the Amazons,
slut.
And Baphomet, by which I mean they beat her up, steal her wings, and leave her crucified and on fire. In Hell, this is known as a slightly unfriendly greeting. After 5 minutes, a Jinn turns up, frees you, and then starts tagging along so he has someone to listen to his lectures on theology.
If this is true, I do not know, but I like to believe so.
This all takes place in the first level and is just about as far as the plot goes. Later you drop by the cock and ball torture altar to pick up a bow from a decomposing goat man, and then it's just a straight set of missions to work your way through up to killing Agretha and Baphomet. Dialogue is pretty stellar.
You two-faced whore of Lucifer.
Vidya's voice also caught me by surprise.
Agretha, always trying to sound smarter than you are. It makes you look even more insecure, hun. Not a great look.
I had not been expecting the slim, sexy Succubus to sound like she'd been chain-smoking since the banishment of Cain. The level variety is decent. You have your standard hellish burning pits and tortured sinners, but you also have Hell, Norway, the Second Circle Daycare, and the aforementioned Cock Crumple Chapel. On a technical level, the game looks, not amazing, but serviceable. Madmind are about 20 people in Eastern Europe, so you're not going to get Red Dead level temperature reactive testicle shrinkage. The art direction of the world being made of flesh and bones, mostly other people's, looks interesting enough that I don't really mind the lower technical quality. Once everything's in motion, you don't really notice the lower fidelity. Same can really be said for the more lurid aspects of the game. While you're chopping a horde to pieces with a jawbone or igniting sinners with finger guns, whether the creature charging you with a sharpened femur has its tits out or not isn't really what you're focusing on. And same goes for the sex scenes, which are, in a word, janky. You have sex dream sequences and various NPCs scattered around the levels that you can engage with, but the animation is pretty stiff and the options you have aren't really that appealing. I'm not showing you the full animations here for what quite frankly should be obvious reasons, but you're not actually missing that much. It probably would have been fine back in the 2000s, or maybe even early 2010s, but we're in the golden age of source filmmaker. There's a whole dragon's hoard of high-quality, three-dimensional smut in any genre you could want, for free. We're no longer in the hard times where you had to settle for the digital equivalent of mags you found behind the chemical sheds. All I'm saying is that you're not going to see Succubus's sex scenes put on in the Italian Senate. Yes, this did actually happen. No, what we're here for is gameplay, and that's where the game truly shines. There's not been many games that have done first-person combat well. You're mostly looking at Vermintide, maybe Dying Light, Shadow Warrior 1 kind of if you count the sword-only runs, which is the best way to play that game. That's on my list for its own video. And of course, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. Actually, we'll get back to that one. You can hold 3 weapons, except when you can hold 4, and there's a good variety, each having their own alt-fire. Well, not fires, but attacks. Unless you count the flaming boomerang as a gun. These slash, smash, and skewer with good visual and tactile feedback. Blood limbs and poorly attached reproductive organs flying all over the shop. Not that all weapons are as useful as each other, but a lot have niches that serve them well. The default knives might not hold up in damage like some of the later weapons, but the homing alt-fire really deals with those fucking cherubs that keep flying out of reach. The Trident's alt-fire I found to be quite satisfying to shish kebab sinners with, as it penetrates several of them in a line. It also completely breaks some of the bosses of the game, as the game is built around melee, so you can just kite them into double hell. This is only the second most broken weapon in the game. That grand honour is owned by the Staff. It's fast, high damage, and hits a wide area. Even the tougher enemies can't stand up to the blender. It's honestly some more shit. If you somehow die, or if you just feel like it, you can enter Rip and Tear mode, which lets you slow down time and increase your damage. But honestly, one of the most effective ways to deal with enemies is simply to, well, remember Dark Messiah? You get a mighty hoof, who even needs weapons when the enemies are walking grenades. Most enemies are not too tough and come in large numbers, so they're a joy to mow your way through like an underdressed combine harvester. There are some more sword spongy enemies later, but we'll get back to them. Your melee arsenal is also supplemented by the aforementioned magical attacks, such as fireballs, flamethrowers, fire missiles. Okay, it's mostly fire, but there are some others too, I just didn't use them. They don't do as much damage as the melee, instead serving more as crowd control and letting tentacles know that you're not in the mood. No one likes a pushy man. These are also your main ranged attack, ignoring the game-breaking trident. Which powers you get depend on your drip, as does your health, which, like your weapons, can be configured in your cave. It serves as your base of operations and hub world between missions. It's fully customizable too. The currency you use is the souls of those you've vanquished. Demon souls are worth more than humans, as even hell isn't above having inflation problems. I'm a fan of the Madman office. Nothing more truly horrific than a 9-to-6 office job. Can you imagine? One of the uncountable, sitting at the same desk among identical white walls for 70 years until you die. The tiny void left by your life filled in an instant by one of the billions exactly like you. Your name disregarded by wider existence is nothing of note. A grain of sand tossed in the desert of human existence. Unremarkable. Unremembered. So you see, officer, you don't need to press charges against me. You couldn't really call them living, so it's not really murder one. There's also a beach if that suits you better. You have various amenities, you have your bed, bath, barbecue, and underpaid janitor. I'm joking, of course. They do it for free. Your weapons and armor can also be bought and customized here. As the game progresses, you'll unlock more and arguably better versions. For weapons, it's generally better to just put up with a weak one for a couple of missions and then buy the one at the top of the range, rather than waste hard-earned souls on mediocrity. Armor is far more important, as not only does it affect your powers and health, but also how you look. I don't really care if the Agony special technically is better. I'm not going out looking like that. Now, as you probably know, I'm a slut for some good dress up, and while the amount of armors only have a small selection, with more available as DLC, the actual base character customization is pretty solid, with full facial customization in addition to the standard hair and eye options. You have a wide range of horns, which I did appreciate. Body has a bit less, but still a good showing with both thickness and age sliders. More options for horns and body painting are unlocked as the game progresses, and give a reason to do the extra level challenges. These are usually fairly easy, like killing 30 using a certain weapon, or heal a certain amount, and then there are the take no damage ones, which are ridiculously challenging. They also don't scale with difficulty, so if you turn it up, it becomes pretty much impossible. Did I mention these also happen on boss levels? From your base, you can also view the collectibles of the game. These come in two varieties and are found around the levels. The first and more interesting are comic book pages, which show Vidya's time before the game, done in the classic 80s heavy metal style. I usually couldn't give two shits about collectibles in games, but these gave an actual incentive. The others to collect are statues that give entries in the bestiary. You can then unlock additional lore with souls, like that humans make up the vast majority of building materials used in Hell, in case the level design and schlong smashing sanctum didn't already make that obvious. Enemy variety is decent. You have your set decoration that don't really count, like the elderly or infants. Moving up, you have the humans that haven't given up yet, Onoskelly that hurl fireballs, mostly at their allies, then tougher Amazons and Succubi. The Succubi are all female, so sorry, no Succubusy for you today. Above them, you have the cohorts that serve as mini-bosses, and my estranged aunts that serve as full bosses. Man, Angela really let herself go, huh? Oh shit, I think she heard me. She definitely heard me, because after defeating her, she then soft-locked the game 4 times. The exit portal just never opened. I think running it in DirectX 11 mode helped a bit, but honestly I'm not sure. The only other bug I encountered was with the sound effects not playing for the sword executions on the cohorts, so as usual your mileage may vary. Quick editor's note, the current patch seems to have a bug where any magic attack will crash the game. If you're watching this later, it's probably been fixed, but if not, you'll need to down patch. November update seems to work fine. We should probably also address the elephant in the womb. No, not the surprise family planning. We'll skip talking about that and see if we can keep this to just age restricted and not removed entirely. I'm talking about censorship. After the ordeal with Agony and having to keep cutting out bits to appease the American ratings boards, this time the game just comes censored by default. And like many a game I've covered on this channel, you can patch this out, returning all the titties and dicks to the unpixeled way their creators intended. I find it odd that the relentless violence is okay, but a dude schlong? That's simply too far. It might be a result of the American ratings boards only having 2 real ratings for non-kiddie games, that being teen, 13+, and mature, 17+, rather than here where it goes 12, 15, and 18. I suppose they have adults only, but that doesn't really compare. AO carries a lot of other restrictions, such as not being able to advertise, that isn't true for 18s. I can't go 10 feet without a God of War poster at the moment. TLDR, censorship is dumb and extremely arbitrary. I think the game agrees with me too.
Censorship is the weapon of weak-minded, worthless weasels, is what I always say.
That said, the censored option does make my job a hell of a lot easier. I can't imagine having to do all the censorship in this manually. Overall, the game is great for what it wants to be, that being a rather edgy linear combination of Doom with Dark Messiah. It's not exactly ashamed about its heritage.
There's a rumor there was a man here in Hell who laid waste with a big fucking gun.
In a word, it's irreverent. An unapologetic, gory power fantasy to appeal to everything 14-year-old you would have thought the metalest shit on the planet. And you know what? At the end of the day, I think we'd all be in a better place if we stopped for a moment and said, yeah, you know what? It kind of is. Edgy self-indulgence gets a bad rap. It's not going to appeal to everyone, but if it appeals to you, then there's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to kick back and enjoy the simpler things, give it a go. Game retails for about 20 quid and even less than that on sale. Well worth the price of admission. Not sure I'd say the same for the DLC, it's mostly just cosmetics and a bit of a half-baked extra game mode. Editor's note too, while I was recording, the game added some more DLC where you play actually as the Red Queen. Curse you, Madmind, for your dedicated support to your projects. I'm certainly interested to see what the devs have to offer next. The next game is going to be an RTS/Empire builder by the looks of it. So of all the things you can call Madmind Studios, they're not adverse to experimentation. Sometimes it doesn't work out so great, but sometimes it does. And I'm happy to stick along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and a happy Your Preferred Winter Festival here to you all. If you're watching this the week it comes out, then I'll be doing a live stream this weekend. Note, delete as appropriate for production schedule. Speaking of apologies for not quite making the video every 2 months that I'd wanted. Life gets in the way, especially when your industry explodes into flames. I'll do better next year. Get subscribed for whatever actually happens. You can also follow me on Twitter or join the Discord for any updates. And if you'd like to help me out, please share their videos. I'm told that's what counts for YouTube these days. Might not be true, but I'm not sure even they know at this point. Right, I'm going to go drink like a sink to bring in the new year. Best wishes to you all. Until next time. Oh, there's also a selfie mode, because there is genuinely no market Apple won't sell to.